Good morning, Bitcoiners. It's a great day today, huh? Yes. I'm plugging for Bitcoin to go over 70 and even higher when the president speaks. But today, this morning, we're going to have a panel of three gentlemen who are competing to join the United States Senate, change the majority so that they will be pro-Bitcoin in their outlook and pro-economic growth for the country. With me today, these three gentlemen are in some of the most competitive Senate races around the country. Bernie Moreno, in the middle, is running in Ohio against Sherrod Brown, one of the worst senators when it comes to Bitcoin and digital assets. Next to me is John Deaton, who is taking on Elizabeth Warren.
I got some fans over there. Wow. Fan club.
And on the far end of the panel is Sam Brown, who's taking on Senator Rosen. Now, we all know the last 4 years has seen a war on digital assets. The Biden-Harris administration made it known almost from the beginning that if you weren't Sam Bankman-Fried, they didn't want anything to do with you. They've sicked the IRS. They're trying to take away self-custody. They've issued banking regulations, one thing after another. Well, the way we resolve these issues in America is through an election. And each of these men is standing for election in order to make those changes. So I want to quickly get to them. I've introduced who they are, but I want each of them to tell you a little bit about themselves, their background, and their view on Bitcoin. Bernie, why don't we start with you in Ohio?
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for caring so much about your industry. I'm Bernie Moreno. I'm the Republican nominee in Ohio. Born in South America, was in the retail automotive business, bought my first dealership when I was in my 30s, built a group of 15 dealerships that represented 30 brands, sold that, started a technology company that allowed car titles to be digital using blockchain. We had to pass a law to allow that to happen because the federal government insisted that one piece of paper had to be signed in triplicate with wet ink, which was insane. We got that done. It opened my eyes to public policy. I never thought I would run for office. The guy I'm running against is Sherrod Brown. He went to Yale University, majored in Russian studies, went into elected office when Richard Nixon was in the White House. And the next time you're at a big sporting event, throw a ball out into the stadium. Whoever catches that ball is more qualified to regulate cryptocurrency than Sherrod Brown. He's Elizabeth Warren's useful idiot, has no interest in understanding what Bitcoin is, because at the end of the day, what these guys care about is centralized control. They don't want to have decentralized control. They want to have all the power to themselves. We got to get rid of these people that want to die in office. That's why I'm running.
Sam, tell us a little bit about Nevada and your race there.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Sam Brown, and I never expected to be here as I started my adult life. Right after 9/11, I went to the United States Military Academy at West Point, and must not be any Navy folks out here. Oh, you got one over there? All right, go Army. But look, service asks a lot of us, and there's risks involved in it. And ultimately, as I deployed to Afghanistan in 2008, I encountered one of those risks, a roadside bomb that sent me back stateside on a 3-year journey of recovery. Ultimately, I was medically retired out of the military, but there were blessings in it. And if any of us have been through hardship, which certainly Bitcoiners have been through some hardship, we know that there is, with persistence, with determination, we will reap the rewards of that. So I've got a beautiful family, been married for 15 years, have 3 kids, and went back to school, got my MBA, started a business in pharmaceutical services. But a couple of years ago, our country has taken a radical turn to the left. And I'm just curious, how many folks out here have been politically engaged before? I'm talking about voters. How many of you vote? All right?
All right, good.
All right. How many of you have volunteered or contributed to a campaign? Okay.
Nice.
Handful. All right. What is required of us at this time is to take the next step. If you've never voted before, you've got to vote. You've got to vote because the issues you care about are on the line. If you've never volunteered on a campaign before, you've got to get involved. If you've never contributed to a campaign before, you've got to get involved. How many of you want to see the left attack Bitcoin, attack our energy industry in a way that hurts us? Do we have any single issue voters out here on Bitcoin? Anybody? All right. It's time to get involved. And my next step in service to country was running for United States Senate. And I'm taking on Jackie Rosen, who, if you're familiar with Harry Reid, she came in with his machine, and it's time to retire her and get some new leadership in office.
Thank you, Sam. And our next speaker, I first noticed him when he took on Gary Gensler in a lawsuit against the SEC and won. And now John's taking on Elizabeth, and he's going to win. John, tell us about your race and what's going on.
Thank you, and it's great to be here. Listen, I'm from Detroit, Michigan. That's where I was born. Single mother on welfare and food stamps in one of the worst neighborhoods in America in the last 40 years, called Highland Park, Detroit. And listen, when I read the Bitcoin white paper in December of 2016, I thought of my mother. Because I remember standing in line, watching her debase herself because she couldn't keep a minimum bank deposit. So she had to go to those check cashing stores that you see in the hood. And I saw her beg them, can you please take not 20% or 15%? We need that money for food. So when I read the Bitcoin white paper, I thought of her, and I thought of how we can eliminate the predatory fees of the banks and the middleman. When I was in college, I would send my mother money to help with my younger 2 siblings. I'd send her $100. It would go through Western Union. They would take $12 or $15. And so, listen, when they're not looking, that's where you pay attention. I just disclosed to the Federal Election Commission that my net worth 82% in Bitcoin, baby. And I'm going against Elizabeth Warren, who wants to ban the self-custody of Bitcoin in the United States. She went on Meet the Press, and she told Chuck Todd that America is ready for a Federal Reserve-issued CBDC. George Orwell is rolling over in his grave, and I'm looking you in the face and telling you, I'm going to beat Elizabeth Warren.
Woo! Thank you, John. I run Club for Growth. We have a bipartisan pro-Bitcoin group called BIP that fights on these policy issues up on the Hill. We've also got a Bitcoin Freedom Pact to help them all these gentlemen all get elected. But I want to ask each of you, what do you think the most important issue is that we need to take the left on, take Elizabeth Warren, take Sherrod Brown, Rosen? What do you think are the most important issues in this area that you guys are going to be facing? Bernie.
Fundamentally, what I've seen in this country for the 50-plus years that I've been here, moving here from South America, is that our Declaration of Independence was very clear. We have certain inalienable rights. And everybody reads that section, except for Joe Biden, he forgot it. But at the end of that sentence, it's really important. It says, in order to secure these rights, governments are constituted among men deriving their powers from the people. We are the ones that are in charge of this country. These politicians have got it backwards. They think they're in charge. They think they get to tell us what kind of car to drive, what kind of stove to own, whether we can own Bitcoin or not. That's what's on the ballot this year. We're going to take this country back. We're in charge, not these politicians.
Sam.
Yeah, I'll just jump off from there and say that one of the things that we've seen is an abuse of the executive branch that creates, all sorts of bureaucratic roles, and Congress has unfortunately allowed the executive branch to run amok. And we've had a really important decision come out in the Supreme Court this year, Chevron deference, which is going to help reverse that power balance there. And what we need is people in Congress who are willing to go to war against the bureaucracy and the regulations and rules they create. And so one thing that we can look at is our energy policy and the way that we see different places trying to really, frankly, attack Bitcoin miners in the pursuit of that mining. We cannot allow government and especially bureaucrats go unchecked and attacking broad industries as energy and specifically targeting folks like Bitcoin miners. So that's one of the things that I'm excited, not just within this particular industry, but broadly speaking, to be a part of a Senate majority come November that is actively going to work on behalf of the people. As Bernie said, we need to represent the people and not allow nameless and faceless bureaucrats to create rules that impact so many of us.
Thank you, Sam. John, what do you see as some of the most important issues facing us?
Well, it comes down to self-determination. When you look at me, you're looking at the living embodiment of the American dream and everything that's possible in a great free country. And so Elizabeth Warren, if she actually were for poor people and expanding the middle class, she would adopt Bitcoin. She would be a proponent of Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, it's about self-determination. And I look at Bitcoin, I look at economic freedom. And so I think that economic freedom, Massachusetts just became the single most expensive state to live in the country. So I think that this message is going to be a good one.
Terrific. Thank you. Now, let's move from Washington back to the campaign trail, because you all have to win your races in order to go and change that city, which won't be easy. But you'll get a mandate from the voters in your state for the things that you want to do. How are you coming up against your opponent and on these issues, on the questions of Bitcoin and digital assets? And are they using that against you? Are they using it in the campaign? What's the dynamic there, Bernie, when it comes to on the ground winning the race?
Yeah, so my opponent, again, as I mentioned, 50 years in elected office, never had a job other than being an elected official. Again, one of these guys that wants to die in office, which is insane to me. His attack ad against me is, I'm a car dealer. Not a good car dealer, not a bad car dealer, just a car dealer. It's not enough of a pejorative for him to say I was a car dealer, though. He calls me a used car salesman, which I fully embrace, by the way, fully embrace. Because the reality is, somebody who sells used cars wakes up every single day, has to go to work, has to get to a result in order to provide for their family. These career politicians do nothing, do terrible things, wreak havoc, get us $35 trillion in debt, and guess what? Somehow that guy's a millionaire. Explain that one to me. So from my perspective, what he thinks is honorable, which is to collect a government paycheck your whole life and not have to be accountable, shows who he's really all about. So this is about, again, the people standing up and making it clear that the politicians work for us. They're not supposed to be there forever, and we need people who've at least had some sense of reality in their lives that isn't Washington, D.C.
Sam, what's it like there in Nevada?
Right now it's a lot hotter than it is here, but as we get into the next 100 days, the campaign's going to really heat up even more. Look, I mentioned earlier, Jackie Rosen was the protege of Harry Reid. And, you know, for those who remember how much he ruled the Senate with an iron fist when he was a leader there for the Democrat Party, know that they built a machine to get people elected in Nevada. But we're breaking that apart. And one of the scary things about Jackie Rosen is she goes wherever the wind blows. Wherever the political winds blow, she will be. And so the warning to all of us is, especially at a time in an election like this where there is so much at stake. So much at stake in the presidential election, and so much at stake in our Senate elections and the House elections. There's no margin for error. And if we sit back and we allow folks like Jackie Rosen, who, by the way, David, is now taking very conservative policy positions that I have been talking about for the last 2 years and repeating them as if they are her own, we have got to be wary of someone like that. She is, in fact, voted 99% of the time with Joe Biden's policies. Now, she might come out, especially because here I am at the Bitcoin conference, and I have been very supportive of our efforts, of the industry at large. And she's probably going to say, hey, I'm over here, I'm for Bitcoin, I'm for other cryptos and stuff to try and neutralize that position with me. But what I would say is, if someone has not taken a stand, an active, clear stand in the past, and that we're 100 days out for the election, be wary. And don't let their words now that are not backed up by deeds neutralize your support for someone else. Because there is no margin for error after this election. We have got to win these races. Our opponents are going to say and do whatever they can, or our opponents like mine and in other states, to try and cover their tracks. But they have no spine. They will not take the stand, and they will not be with you should they win re-election.
Thank you, Sam. John, your opponent, Elizabeth Warren, spends a lot of time traveling around the country, or she has in the past, trying to elect progressive, far-left members in her party and defeat freedom-loving candidates, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. And she's had free rein because Republicans really haven't spent much time trying to defeat her in Massachusetts. You came on the scene and have mounted a real challenge. I hear the polling shows that it's actually really close at this point, which most people would not have imagined. Is Elizabeth spending a little more time at home, and are you keeping her on the campaign trail so she can't do too much damage?
Listen, I knew my biggest obstacle isn't Elizabeth Warren. I relish, and so should you, when I stand on that debate stage with her, trust me. But it's the perception that, it's liberal Massachusetts, she can't be beat. What got this started is I saw a poll that former Republican Governor Charlie Baker, if he were running, he would smoke her 49% to 34%.
Wow.
That's how large of a margin he would win. And I reached out to his campaign manager and said, hey, I'm tired of her gaslighting about Bitcoin. Let me do his crypto policy for him, free of charge. I'm not looking for anything. And I was told, listen, Governor Baker's not going to run it. And so she's got a 41% approval rating. She finished third in the Democratic primary in her own state. That shows you how unpopular she is when she ran for president. 57% of Boston readers said she's vulnerable to me, and she is. In fact, it caused Fox Business, I don't know if Charlie Gasparino and Nellie are out there, but Fox Business did a segment on Liz Clayman's show, Why is Elizabeth Warren so scared of John Deaton? And everybody's going to find out real soon why.
Wonderful. When we wake up the morning after the election, Bernie said it backstage, when John Deaton wins that election, we know everybody else is going to be on a home run. Let me ask you all, gentlemen, Bitcoin is a big part of the digital revolution. It's the original OG, right? And most of the digital assets that people hold are in Bitcoin. You mentioned 82% of yours. Do you all in your campaigns accept Bitcoin as a way people can donate and contribute?
I do, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in Ohio, we got it so that you could pay your taxes in Bitcoin.
Wow. They're going to come after that, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they will. But yeah, we're actually actively trying to get ours set up right now. But I tell you what, as all of us care about freedom, we care about, as John talked about, being able to rise up without predatory, banking practices and stuff. This is what America is about. Bitcoin, this mission, reminds me so much of what the early sort of founding fathers, had in mind in terms of allowing Americans to pursue their own freedom, their own liberty, and that's what this conference is about. But we don't get to protect that without winning these elections.
David, let me just share this. 80% of all U.S. dollars in circulation were printed in the last 3.5 years. Think about that. In January 2020, $4 trillion U.S. dollars were in circulation. Today, it's $20 trillion. Bitcoin has a future. There's no doubt about it.
Terrific. So later today, on this stage, we're going to hear from President Trump. Tell me how the dynamic has changed for each of you in the last few weeks, with Joe Biden pulling out of the race, Kamala Harris being anointed apparently as the Democrat nominee. What's happening? And any predictions that you've got for your state in the presidential race? John, do you want to start that?
Well, listen, in Massachusetts, President Trump's not that popular, to be candid, right? He lost by 33 points. I'm not focused on the presidential election. I don't know how Vice President Harris getting involved is going to affect it. But I can tell you that my focus is on Senator Warren. And what I'm hearing, I'm having Democrats join this campaign. She's lost a lot of the support. And so I think we're going to surprise a lot of people in my election.
Great. Bernie.
Yeah, in my state, President Trump will probably win somewhere between 12 to 15%. Of course, J.D. Vance, another great advocate for Bitcoin, is now our VP nominee. 39 years old, first millennial ever at the top of the ticket. So it's nice to see that happening. So in Ohio, the top of the ticket will certainly be very beneficial for me. So in my case, it's great news. Listen, the Republicans are fully united. And I would say this, there's probably people out there in the audience that you might not consider yourself a Republican, but you look at what Kamala Harris stands for, what Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown stand for, and Jackie Rosen, they're out to lunch. They would be more comfortable in the continent where I came from. Join us in the Republican Party. These are not Republican versus Democrat issues. These are common sense versus lunacy. That's what we're going to do. Take a look at our agenda. That's what we're about.
Look, in Nevada, we're going to be one of those scrappy battleground states in the presidential race. And President Trump is leading in the polls right now. But look, Vice President Harris is probably going to get a little bit of this energetic bump as her party rallies around her. So what we cannot afford to do is to assume that the races are already won. What we cannot afford to do is to assume that other people are going to go out and do the work for us to get these things to a victory. And Nevada, last cycle, demonstrated that in our Senate race alone. It was the closest Senate race in the nation. So we cannot take anything for granted. What I have noticed in just the early, first few days of Vice President Harris's campaign is they are aggressive. They are sophisticated. They are trying to cover different bases of vulnerability, and this is one of those things that I would not be surprised because she's very friendly to tech. She's from California, that we see them try and make a pivot on and differentiate themselves from the Biden campaign. But ultimately, we can win this race with the hard work, with people being engaged, and having the votes. And President Trump at the top of the ticket is certainly going to help.
That's great. When I was last When I was last in Nevada, I ran into more people who were former California residents who had to leave the state and find refuge in Nevada to continue to do their businesses. We've got a few minutes left. Could each of you share real quickly what folks here in the room could do most to help you? Maybe give them your website so they could follow you, donate, participate in ways that they might be able to. John?
Yes, listen, my race is winnable. I told you my biggest problem is this perception that she can't be beat in Massachusetts. And trust me, I wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't a path to victory. I wouldn't have put $1 million of my own money to set up the infrastructure to win this campaign when I did, if it wasn't winnable. So if you can go to johndeatonforsenate.com and help me, I promise you, I will give you your money's worth when I stand on that debate stage against Elizabeth Warren. I promise you that.
Great. johndeatonforsenate.com.
Correct.
Bernie.
So my website's easy, BernieMoreno.com. Here's what I'd say to you. Are you sick of these politicians that say Bitcoin is for drug dealing and money laundering? Is that how you guys view yourselves? Or are you just people that want freedom and liberty in a country that promised it from the very beginning? That's what this election's about. And by you going out and voting and helping us win, think about how crazy it is how we've been in this world of Bitcoin for now going on 15 plus years. And imagine that what history will look back on is that it was the Bitcoiners that got freedom and liberty restored in America. Are you with me to make that happen?
Look, you can join me on my mission at CaptainSamBrown.com, and that's the same handle for all of my social medias as well, CaptainSamBrown.com. Look, you guys know that Bitcoin can go around the world and back, and the same thing is true about your political engagement. You can help any one of us, whether it's contributions or even volunteering. There's ways to do that. Technology allows that to happen. But what I'll tell you is, in the same way that you're early adopters of Bitcoin, we're early adopters of Bitcoin, be an early adopter of this election cycle and being an ambassador. You have a voice. Some of you are from Ohio. Some of you are from Massachusetts. Some of you are from Nevada. But we need you to be ambassadors for us. Activate your network. Bitcoiners can make the difference this election, and CaptainSamBrown.com is the website.
And let me just say, I apologize for only having 82% of my net worth in Bitcoin. I'll get there.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for running. Let's go and win. Right. Stand up here and let them say hi to you.
Next year, we are bringing the Bitcoin Conference to the American West, Las Vegas. The brightest minds in the world will converge to deliver Bitcoin history. Buy your tickets now at b.tc/conference/2025.